Morning, church. We're halfway through the week, so I pray and I hope that you continue to find hope and encouragement through Jesus. So stay safe and continue to pray and seek God in all that you do. With that, let's begin. I can't wait. When you hear these words, what comes to mind? Maybe some of you guys are thinking right now, oh, I can't wait to eat lunch or to eat dinner. Or maybe you're thinking, I can't wait for the weekend. Or maybe some of you are thinking, I can't wait to be done with school. Or some of you, or at least I know a lot of you are thinking, I can't wait for church to reopen. The other day I went shopping for some food, and of course, I'm not just buying food for today, I buy food that'll probably last me throughout the week. But specifically, I bought bagels the other day, and I plan on eating them throughout this week. But as I'm thinking about how I'm going to eat it, and just the other night, as I laid in bed hungry, I remember thinking about breakfast the next morning and just imagining how good it was going to be once I consumed this bagel. And I kept thinking, I can't wait to wake up and eat breakfast. But of course, as I was mentioning earlier, we can use this saying for a lot of other situations as well. Another example would be the time before I started my ministry here at Glendale. And I remember the days and the nights before my very first Sabbath, I couldn't wait. I was excited to meet the church. I was excited to meet the youth. I couldn't wait to begin. When I think about these words, I can't wait, there is this sense of excitement, this sense of eagerness, this joy. And when we say these words or the saying, there's this sense of anticipation. We look forward to something that is going to happen, whether it's because of our impatience or maybe due to a lack of time, or if it's really because we are just eager and excited for what is yet to come. And it gives a sense of hopefulness and motivation until that event actually happens. Now, this saying can also be used in situations where things maybe are not so pleasant or maybe not so desirable. And we can say things like, oh, I can't wait for this to be over. I can't wait till things are better. It's kind of like our current situation in the midst of this pandemic. It's hard for me to imagine having this excitement, this I can't wait mentality without having something to actually look forward to. There has to be some kind of goal or some kind of big picture or some kind of event, person, or thing for us to really look forward to, right? Think about it. If I say, hey, everyone, I can't wait, your first response would probably be something along the lines of, okay, for what? Like, what can you not wait for? If we have a I can't wait moment, that means there is a person, thing, or an event that is associated with that. Today, we are looking at Hebrews chapter 9. And if you've already read this chapter, you're probably thinking, what's the connection? Because if you look at chapter 9, you notice that, for one, it's a continuation of chapter 8 about this new covenant. This specifically, Hebrews dives into more history of kind of the Levitical, the sacrificial process and the system. And he's talking more about these regulations and rules pertaining to this first covenant that he had been mentioning. And remember, if anything, this chapter that we're reading is proving the point of chapter 8's message, where the old covenant is being done away with. That isn't talking about like the Old Testament or the Ten Commandments or the laws of Moses, but rather it's pointing specifically to the Levitical priestly laws and systems. Now, Hebrew gives us this history lesson about the earthly sanctuary. He's talking about like the holy place and the most holy place. And specifically, he's talking about how the high priest and his role in this particular service. And he talks about how priests go in and out of the courtyard regularly, the holy place regularly, but for the most holy place, it was reserved for only the high priest, and it was only once a year. And then after he's kind of established this history lesson and talks about this old time tradition that all these Christians reading and hearing would totally understand and relate to, he shifts the tone of the message at verse 11. And then he goes into this, you see, we've been talking about how Jesus is really who he is, and a life with him is totally worth it. And on top of that, you see, Jesus is this high priest. The heavenly sanctuary's high priest is Jesus. And then Hebrew makes the connection between Jesus is the guy that will be representing the new covenant. And it's through Jesus' sacrifice, his blood and his death, and ultimately his resurrection that we have something to look forward to. Just as the high priest of this earth would take a blood sacrifice as a reminder and a way in which he would atone for our sins, Jesus does the same, but this time it's with his life. But the question then becomes, what exactly can we look forward to? Hebrew adds this final part, which some say is kind of odd, and because it's almost like it's a side note. It doesn't really follow the conversation that Hebrews is having. But I think this part is really important, and it's a useful side note. Because like Hebrews is reminding us, this is what it's really all about. He's putting the big picture there for us to see once again. And this is what we can look forward to. In other words, it's this I can't wait kind of moment that he's sharing. Hebrews chapter 9 verse 28 says this: "So Christ, having been offered once to bear the sins of many, will appear a second time, not to deal with sin, but to save those who are eagerly waiting for him." It's super interesting because the biggest difference between Jesus and the new covenant and then the high priest and the old covenant is the repetition. And what I mean by that is that Hebrew makes it clear that the old covenant, the way in which they made sacrifices and the high priest doing his part by going into the most holy place, all of this had to take place year after year. It was a repetitive cycle that happened every time that they found themselves in sin, and it was really a gruesome and cruel process. But Jesus, on the other hand, this new high priest, only once did he have to sacrifice his life for us. And that's all it took for him. And that is wonderful news. And that's exactly what we find here. Because Hebrew is adding at the end, this is what we look forward to. Because before, you looked forward to every year where this ritual would take place, this procedure would happen of our sins being atoned, and the high priest and the priests doing their job. But now with this new covenant, no longer do we need to follow this same old routine. Rather, we look forward to the second time our high priest will appear. And this time, it's not to make a sacrifice for our sins, but rather it's to save us for those that have been waiting. In other words, Hebrews is saying, I can't wait for the second time Jesus, our high priest, comes, because this time he's taking us home. So church, remember this: Jesus is coming soon. So accept him as your high priest because he's coming to take you home.